Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Kayla Horlbeck will be presenting Is Your Brand in Need of a Digital Renovation? Everyone will be muted to minimize background noise, but if you do have any questions, please use the questions box in the GoToMeeting meeting panel. Now I will turn this over to Kayla. Kayla, take it away.
Thank you so much. Hope you guys are all having a good afternoon. I don't know what situations are in your practices with everything that's going on right now in the country, but I hope you guys are hanging in there and staying sane. And I think it's a great time, to utilize this time to learn some things and really, possibly build up some areas of the practice that you might not always get a chance to focus on. So hopefully you can learn some things today to take back in terms of some marketing and social media tips. So thanks for being a part of this. Just a little bit about myself, real quick. I went to the University of Miami with a degree in marketing and accounting, and that's also where I received my MBA. I've been in the industry for 12 years now, over 12 years, and I work in a couple capacities, both on the financial side of things with the companies JM Shoemaker Consulting and Account Track, but then I also am the founder of Informed Image, which is my own company where I focus specifically on sales and marketing. So I think that my background and my education kind of gives me more of a managerial view of things, hopefully, to where it's things that are realistic that you can, really take back and use in your practice. So today's agenda, just so that you kind of know where we're going to go with this, I want to talk about identifying potential buyers. I want to talk about promoting your quote-unquote property, which in your instance would be the practice. Schedule a showing and time for a walkthrough. So obviously the title of the presentation was, is your practice in need of a digital reno? Is your brand in need of a digital reno? So it's loosely following, kind of like a home renovation type of theme, just to keep it interesting. But that's the agenda for today's presentation. So first, let's discuss identifying potential buyers. And obviously for orthodontics, that's, who are our patients, who are potential patients, families, et cetera, who are they going to be? So we really have three, obviously, main age groups, large general age groups: children, teens, and adults. And one of the questions that I've really been asking practices lately is, truly, what is our first priority? In orthodontics, it's generally, been known that we want to see children starting at age 7. And that's all the literature that's out there with the AAO recommendations and everything like that. But what I've noticed over the years is, as we've realized the fact that we could utilize a different market in terms of marketing to adults, possibly parents of our patients, et cetera, in some ways, I kind of feel like we've lost sight of this is our main target market. So I'll just give you a couple of examples of what to be thinking about with that. So one example here is to take a look at the AAO actually has a YouTube page where they've put up some different videos and things like that about orthodontics. And YouTube is obviously a place that a lot of kids especially are going to go nowadays to learn about things or look up videos on things. So what I find interesting about this, and this has been true really over the course of the past year and a half at least, this is a screenshot of the AAO's YouTube page recently, just within the past couple months. And as you can kind of see here, there's maybe only 2 videos at a quick glance that might actually pertain to kids, which is really kind of the bread and butter, or should be the bread and butter, of our practice. There's only, 2 items on here. There's some really informative things, and there's a lot of, orthodontists discussing braces and orthodontics. But in terms of if we're really trying to reach out to kids, I kind of feel like we've forgotten the fact that our target market should be reaching out towards the younger age group. So, like I said, the marketing geared towards children has dwindled a little bit. And I don't want to ignore the teen and adult markets. I think it's an excellent place to be able to supplement the income for the practice. But what we're seeing now with the, influx of corporate dentistry, as well as, kind of mail order aligners, we're facing the toughest competition as maybe more of a traditional orthodontic practice when we are going towards teens and adults, because those are the age groups that actually, can apply for things like the mail order aligners, or they might be more, in tune to get Invisalign or something like that. So if we take a look at, for example, just like the Instagram page for Smile Direct Club, one of the big mail order aligner companies, you can see very clearly they are geared towards young professionals, young adults, and in some instances, parents. And that's what all of their marketing is geared towards. So, to me, adult consumers are typically going to value price and convenience when purchasing things for themselves. But when they're purchasing things that might be for their children, oftentimes they're wanting what's best for their children. They still care about a price, but they're not as price conscious. And the other thing is often adult cases are going to be more complicated to get started. They might require some type of preliminary work, dental work, hygiene issues, etc. So my point being in this little segment is just that as a practice, I think we really have to think about how we can be marketing towards children that are of prime orthodontic age, and make sure that that's the bread and butter of our practice, because when we start competing toe-to-toe with some of these corporate options in other age groups, it can be harder. But like I said, those other age groups are great to use to supplement the production in your practice. The other thing that I want to talk about is kind of a generational issue. So for several years in orthodontics at meetings and things like that, we have heard about marketing towards millennial patients. However, the truth of the matter is the millennial generation is now becoming parents. So we actually need to take a look at kind of how they're behaving as parents and what that might mean for marketing that we're going to produce in the practice. So just to give you some quick statistics, the millennial age group is turning 23 to 38 years old this year. 80% of babies were born to millennials, and 40% of millennials are parents. So as you can see, even I myself, I'm a millennial parent. And so I think we often think of millennials still as kind of a younger age group that might be like in high school or college, but the fact of the matter is they're becoming parents. So something for you to keep in mind for your practice is millennial parents, and some of this information that I'm going to give you is basically from a compilation of studies that have been done on consumer behavior of millennial parents. So I just kind of am abbreviating this for you. So one of the things they found is that children are more involved in family decision making. So that's something for you to keep in mind in terms of bringing patients and families into the practice. Kind of how are you catering towards children in terms of like a new patient exam, or trying to discuss treatment. You also can no longer assume you're talking only to moms, because dads play a much more active role now too. Sometimes a dad might be a stay-at-home dad as opposed to what we've always kind of heard about appealing to stay-at-home moms. So think about that in terms of even things like prizes that you're offering in the practice, contests that you might be running. You don't want it to only be geared towards the types of things that might appeal to moms. And the thing about millennials as a generation, and especially as parents, is that they're truly more informed than ever before. They are open to guidance from brands, but they really want to feel more educated. They want to feel like a brand is educating them to make their own decision. They don't want to be told what to do. And especially they're seeking more guidance from peers. So something to think about really is there is currently a fortune to be created in word of mouth. Word of mouth really has not died, and if anything, it has become even more prevalent. It's just done in a different way now. It's done on social media. It's done through reviews that people are leaving. It's done through things that they're posting, on their Facebook page or their Instagram page. So it's just a different way that word of mouth is being spread, but it's all still kind of technically that word of mouth idea. So I just want you to be thinking about that in terms of what you are offering or how you're marketing to your community and to your patients, because millennial parents really are concerned about their entire family. They're concerned about the opinions of their peers. So you really can capitalize on some of that if you have a good rapport in the community. The other thing that's interesting is 75% of millennials feel corporations are focused on their own agendas rather than improving society. So if you're a practice that's faced with the competition, like I said, from corporate dentistry, from corporate orthodontics, from mail order aligner options, where they're not really even seeing the patients, the thing is that millennial parents as a group, it has been found, they will question those things. So while they might, do it for themselves or, might subscribe to that for themselves, when it comes to things for their kids, they are going to question that, and they are going to value, something that's maybe a small local business. So I just want you to be thinking about how you're marketing your practice and positioning it in your community. So let's talk about some, more specifics. How can you promote your property, or, in this instance, how can you promote your practice? So there are a lot of areas that we could go here, but I want to talk to you just in these 3 segments, okay? So let's talk about planning and timing first. All right. There should be a 3-pronged approach that you're taking to your marketing plan as a practice. There should be some dynamic campaigns that you're running. There's a lot of regular maintenance that needs to be done. And then there are some annual traditions that I would like you to think about, either if you have them already or if you need to start some. So let me tell you what I mean specifically about each of these. So in terms of dynamic campaigns, these are going to be things that your practice is going to offer that might only have a life cycle, quote unquote, of like 1 to 2 seasons. What it would apply for is longer running promotions or contests that you're offering. And these should be things that are vibrant and impactful, things that are going to catch people's attention in the community, or, catch your current patient's attention, and change it up every year. The goal is to come up with 3 to 5 campaigns per year for your practice. And, you can be on the low end if you're just getting started with things or revamping things. But 3 to 5 campaigns per year that would last like 3 to 4 weeks each. So, for example, if things hadn't happened the way they happened, you might have had something going on right now that would apply to like March Madness, with the college basketball tournament. And that would be something that might last throughout that, where you would be running some type of like promotions or contests that would correlate with that. So something that's exciting that, again, you're going to change it up every year so that you're keeping it fresh, and you need to think of like 3 to 5 of those per year. When you're considering what type of contest or promotion to run, or how you're going to reward people for contests that you might be running, I want you to think about creating an experience. So there are a lot of practices that I will see that will offer things like a Visa gift card or a Target gift card, or they might offer money off of treatment, or something like that. That's really just purely a monetary value. But what I want you to be thinking about is that prizes or rewards should be in the form of an experience. So the reason I'm saying that is because events that you might provide an event for somebody, that can really go a long way. And the whole point here is I want you to provide opportunities to create more referrals. So let me give you, just a couple of examples. Like, rather than, again, saying, we're going to give you a gift card for some type of shopping or something like that, I would rather see you provide something that's like a spa day for 2 people to maybe go get like manicures and pedicures, or something that's like a movie night for a family to go out to the movies, or maybe dinner and a movie or something like that. Those types of things, what they're doing is they're creating an experience that is going to be talked about amongst friends. People are going to be more willing to share that information or that experience, with others, more so than they would to say, like, hey, I got a $50 gift card to Target, or I got a, something Visa gift card. they are going to have the opportunity to take pictures of things that they're doing if you're providing them with an experience. Those things might get posted on social media. Those things are going to be shared with friends. They're going to talk about your practice possibly when they're attending these types of things. Like, for example, I saw a pediatric dentist office. A friend of mine on Facebook had received a prize from their pediatric office that was like a putt-putt golf night for their family. So it was like, for the family of 4 or whatever, you guys can go out for putt-putt golf and some type of ice cream coupons. And they posted about it on Facebook because, they had such a great time and they wanted to take pictures of their kids. And to me, that probably wasn't that expensive, but it went a much further way than just giving, some type of a monetary discount or something like that off of something. So be thinking about that in terms of the types of things that you're going to offer. The other thing that came up recently with a doctor I was speaking with, he said, we were talking about something for a Valentine's Day promotion because they kind of wanted to try to boost some production in February. And he said to me, well, Kayla, he was actually new in the practice. He was the son of the current orthodontist, and he had just come into the practice. So he said, well, Kayla, isn't it just tacky to, give away like another free Chromebook? Doesn't that just make us look like gimmicky? So, my answer to him, and that's the other thing for you to think about, not just monetary prizes, but when you are just offering something that's like, hey, a new Apple Watch or a new, Amazon Echo or something like that, those kind of go along the same lines. They're not an experience. So instead, we brainstormed on some ideas that they could use that would provide an experience, and it just doesn't seem so gimmicky. It seems like you actually care, about your patients and their families going and doing something fun rather than just, giving them money. The other piece of the 3-pronged approach is regular maintenance. There's always going to be things that you're going to have to do when you're not running those contests or those campaigns. You constantly have to be giving an ongoing assessment of what's working or what's not working, and constantly shaping your practice. So there are going to be things that you are going to provide, like regular recurring discounts. I'm not against those types of discounts that are like, maybe they're for military service members or for teachers or definitely, for siblings or family members. All of that stuff you do still have to incorporate. Think about your branding materials, those types of little small in-office giveaways that you might have available at the front desk or, little contests, small things that you're running. This kind of stuff really can't ever be ignored, and it has to be going on throughout the whole year, as opposed to those dynamic campaigns where you're really going to provide something that's cool and memorable for people, just like 3 to 5 times a year. So that's kind of what regular maintenance is about. Then I want you to think about what your practice might be able to do for annual traditions. So this works best for one-time or short-lived ideas, like events or charity projects. And it would be something that your practice becomes known for, that people can look forward to in your community. In some instances, this might be something that you're offering as like a patient appreciation type of a party, where maybe you might get more of the community involved, or like I said, a big charity project, something like that. The goal with annual traditions, or the reason it's important to come up with a few of these, is because it creates continuity and consistency for your brand. So like I said, it's something people can look forward to, and they know that your practice is associated with this on an annual basis. So I want you to be thinking about 2 to 4 annual traditions. Again, 4 might be, a little bit on the high side, depending on how gung-ho your practice is in terms of marketing. But come up with 2 annual traditions, and repeat those for at least 3 years. So again, it would be some type of like an event or a charity project, a fundraising type of a project, something like that, where you're gonna repeat that for at least 3 years. Come up with at least 2 of those. The other thing I want to talk to you about with timing is, let's kind of just think about the calendar as a whole. And obviously we're already into March, and this is also turning out to be a really weird year. But for future years, you can kind of think about, when is it best to do some of the promotions that you might typically do? So for orthodontics specifically, June, July, August, those are typically the months where we're not having any problem with production. It's summer, school's out, people are coming into the practice, and we're not having any issues. One of the things that I kind of notice in terms of practice marketing is there's often a lot being done around Mother's Day. So whether that's for mothers of the that are mothers of patients, or whether that's for some of our referring dental practices, we might do something for Mother's Day, which is great. I'm all for, recognizing mothers. I think that's great. But it's interesting to think about the fact that a lot of that goes on in May, and it's possibly driving patients into the practice when we're already so busy, where we might not really need, not that we don't need the production, we can always use the new patients, but it's just that we might be able to kind of plan it out a little bit differently. I'll give you another example. Like January is a month where, because of the fact that a lot of patients have flex spending accounts that they're able to start using again in January, January is often a great month in terms of collections, especially in a practice, but also production. It's often easier to get patients that have been sitting in pending to come out of pending in January because they have that flex spending money to use, or patients that had their exams in November and December, they're often waiting until January to start to use that money. So when you think about some of the other times that we might do big pushes in typical orthodontic practices in terms of like marketing or deliveries to referring practices, it's usually like Thanksgiving and Christmas. A lot of practices have some type of tradition that they do for that. Again, those are excellent holidays to recognize and to do something fun for, but we're driving patients or driving buzz for our practice prior to a month where we're already probably going to be a little busier than usual. So the point is just like think about months like February. What could I be doing in February where I can drive patients in February, March, April, where I might be a little slower? What holidays could I recognize? There's things like Valentine's Day, there's President's Day. You could even do something funny along the lines with like Groundhog Day and, offer some type of promotion like for the month of February, like, depending on if the groundhog saw its shadow or something like that. But just think about what could I be doing in February to really get the ball rolling and get the buzz created to drive patients into the practice before summer starts. And September is another good month to think about that. The other thing would be the month of October, too, so that those months where we might be, twiddling our thumbs a little bit, October, November, that we have an opportunity to create that buzz. I've mentioned previously, October is Orthodontic Health Month. And so what's interesting about that, I don't know if the person who decided that thought about it from a marketing perspective, but it's a great month to really, educate people about orthodontics, educate people about your practice, and get out there and market yourself because we need the production in November and December. We'd like to get new patients in the door sooner so that we can finish the year off on a good note. So think about that when you're, think about those annual traditions, think about those dynamic campaigns, and really sit down and plan a marketing calendar for the year based on those things. And truly be thinking about that every year. Your ideas and your promotions and stuff, they're going to change. But this framework and the timing should be pretty consistent and should be something that you're thinking about every year. And right now, you can kind of go back to the practice and think about, all right, what are we going to do for, the next 6 months or from now till the end of the year, even though this year has already begun. Okay, so character and charm, in terms of the house analogy, what are some things that you can be doing to still show off the character and charm of your practice? Just how, people that may be looking for a house, they often like a house that has some character and some charm. I have 2 video clips in the presentation that are just kind of funny little anecdotes. Hopefully you guys can hear these. It's kind of playing through the computer, but this is just a little clip from Modern Family about character and charm.
What are you selling?
Wrapping paper?
Wrong. You're selling Christmas. The excitement of opening presents, the taste of eggnog.
I do love eggnog.
Write this down. What's the difference between try and triumph?
A little oomph?
A little oomph. Get it?
Of course I get it. I just said it.
So hopefully you guys found that funny. Obviously I can't hear you. But my point in that is, think about what you're selling in terms of orthodontics. And one of the things pretty specific that I've noticed on websites and things like that, there's a lot of talk on orthodontic websites about the fact that they are a state-of-the-art practice. They're using the latest advances. They're using digital technology. And for practices like you all who would be employing SureSmile, that's for sure true, and probably maybe more true than what some other practices might be saying, because you are going to be more technologically advanced. So the only issue that I see with that is it's starting to become like every practice is saying that. And when you think about, some of our competitors or like the corporate options or the mail order aligners, they really can say the same thing. So it's not a competitive advantage for us anymore as an orthodontic practice to be using these buzzwords in our marketing materials or in our websites. So rather than saying things like this, what I would encourage you to do is focus on things like the fact that you are locally owned and operated, or that you're family focused, where you're really trying to treat, the whole family from children through adults. The fact that orthodontics is a small business, I think, is often overlooked and often understated. So sometimes it feels weird to think about a practice, a dental or an ortho practice as a small business, because the amount of income or the amount of production is much different than a small local boutique or a small local restaurant or something like that. But the fact of the matter is we are, a small, a local business. And so because of the types of competition that we're facing in the industry, like nowadays, and even honestly during this time of what we're dealing with the coronavirus and the closures from COVID-19, I think that letting patients know that we are a small, locally owned business that's focused on the family is now more important than ever. It's interesting. I've heard some practices talking about are they going to maybe do some video conferencing with their patients while they're closed to possibly check how people are wearing their rubber bands, or see if they have an emergency that they need to come in for. And some practices aren't doing that, some practices are. But one of the points that I just would like to make is that if you are closed, you don't necessarily have to say you're closed. Some practices that I've heard that I like what they're doing is they're saying we're only open for virtual consultation at this time. And the reason that it's important is I don't need a doctor to be inundated with having to do virtual consults while the practice is closed, and there's truly only so much you can accomplish on a virtual consult. But what it's doing is it's reaching out to patients, and it's letting them know that you really do care about them and how they're doing, checking in, just making that type of personal connection that a corporate option, these corporate practices, or like I said, these mail order companies, they don't have that option. So we really have to think about as a maybe a traditional orthodontic practice, what is it that we are doing to really set ourselves apart, and focusing on the fact that we are a small business, that is actually probably more well respected, now more than it was even 10 or 15 years ago. People really like to rally around small businesses in their community. So let's focus on that. The other thing I want you to think about is when you're reaching out to referral sources. I would rather see you target one dental practice at a time rather than having a luncheon for CE credits or something where all of the dental practices that you refer to are invited. Even maybe a couple of staff only. I had a practice in Texas, and they were actually sending out their 2 treatment coordinators to go have lunches once a week. They would schedule a lunch with only 2 staff members from another referring dental practice. And what it was doing was they were just kind of going out to lunch, almost sort of as friends, rather than having some big event or doctor to doctor. It was staff member to staff member. And what those types of things can do is you really are looking to make connections with the staff to create liaisons. So often doctors in referring practices might still be giving multiple names to recommend. They don't want to put one name out there to recommend, for orthodontic treatment. But if you can make connections with the staff, oftentimes the family is going to go to a staff member and say, hey, if you were me, have you heard of any of these orthodontists, or are you familiar with them? So if you can create liaisons in those practices, it's going to have a much better effect for you. And the only way to really do that is to get with them one-on-one. You want to create a sense of trust, and it then in turn creates a sense of obligation. So just think about kind of how you're reaching out. You don't necessarily have to spend more money. You might have to spend more time, but you can really make connections on a one-to-one level with these practices that you're using as your referral sources. The other thing is, like, if you are, when you're trying to think about things in the community, like charity things or other events in the community, build partnerships with another organization or another business in your community. Like, for example, let's say you wanted to participate in like a Relay for Life fundraising effort, for a school in your community. Rather than just going into it as your orthodontic practice, partner up with another practice, maybe a pediatric dentist, maybe somebody not in the dental field. The thing that you need to be thinking about is, if you can create partnerships in your community, you can exponentially grow your exposure, because then anybody who follows that other business, they're going to see what you guys are doing. You're probably going to raise more money, and in turn, you're probably going to have more publicity from an event like that. And then it helps, again, create those connections in the community. So anytime you're going to participate in something in the community, think about how you could maybe be partnering with another business so that, again, you can exponentially maximize your exposure. Something I've seen done here in my community that's been done well, actually, by a plastic surgeon's office, which has, some parallels to an orthodontic practice, hosting an event at your practice that's showcasing other local businesses. So what the plastic surgeon here does is, because they have a very nice office setting, that's like aesthetically pleasing and done well with the waiting room and things like that, they will host certain kind of like local shopping nights in their practice. They're really not talking about plastic surgery. They're not like offering, consultations or anything like that. But what they're doing is they're hosting people that might not have, a storefront to sell things at, like local artisans that, people that might make jewelry, people that might make, little foods or clothing, or any little goods like that. And then they're showing that they're supporting other small local businesses in their community. They're giving those people a place to sell their goods. They're providing usually some type of like hors d'oeuvres or drinks or something like that. And they're getting publicity. And then those people, those local artisans, are posting things on their social media, which in turn, again, they're exponentially maximizing their reach out to potential patients in the community. So we could have an opportunity to do that as an ortho practice as well. We're, set up for that. You could host something like an open house. I've seen some other medical practitioners do this, where they're available after hours. They have almost like an information session. And for orthodontics, it would be like one large kind of new patient exam, nothing treatment-based, but you would be explaining to a group of people kind of about the practice and things that they, giving them an office tour, that kind of stuff. For people that might not be able to make it as easily during, your regular business hours, you could offer an open house occasionally, and then those people can, in turn make some type of appointment, and it may even be able to be an abbreviated, new patient exam so that we can diagnose treatment. But it's just a good opportunity to get people into the practice, and this would be orthodontic focused. But it'd be after hours. You can have a lot of people there at once. They can learn about the practice, and it's really only taking up like, an hour and a half of your time, and hopefully driving in some new patient exams. Thinking about, being a small business, you also have the opportunity to be more transparent and authentic in your communications and in your social media. And you also have the opportunity to go beyond just orthodontic-only topics. Some of the practices that I've seen, have some of the best social media. They will highlight things that the orthodontist himself or herself is interested in. like music or surfing or cooking. You know, you don't just have to post things on your pages that just has to do with here's what's happening in the practice today, or here's the people that got their braces off today, you know, things like that. Try to make it more enticing for people to actually want to follow along and see what you're posting on your page. In that regard, I want to talk specifically about some social media options and avenues for you. Now, some of this might seem, I don't know, overwhelming. Some of this you might already know. It just kind of depends, you know, which generation or which age group you're from. But truly during this time, if your practice is closed, this is a very good time to get situated on some of these social media platforms and see, you know, what do I need to be doing differently? What social media platforms am I on or not on that I probably should start up on? It's an excellent time to kind of catch up on some of this stuff, time that we don't always have. So, you know, in real estate, it's all about location, location, location. And I want to talk to you about the different platforms for social media options that you should be thinking about in terms of location as well. So this is an infographic from this influencer report that was done. As you can see, and you don't have to familiarize yourself with this whole thing, we're going to kind of break it down. But the one thing I do want you to see is we are going to talk about multiple social media platforms, even including things like Snapchat and TikTok, which you know, now I feel like that everybody's home all the time for the past week and a half. TikTok has probably blown up a little more. But I want to just kind of talk to you about good ways to use them. And, you know, you can kind of see here the age groups and the distribution of what people are using. So this down here, the bottom portion is, you know, going to be more the parents of our patients. And so you can kind of see, obviously, Facebook's more prevalent. YouTube's prevalent across the board on all age groups. TikTok is not as prevalent in this age group. But the other thing I want you to see here is I'm just going to kind of zoom in on the areas that are most widely used. So, you know, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, those things should be givens. So if you don't have those platforms for your practice, you need to have all three of those working. And I'm going to kind of tell you what might apply, you know, in which instance. So YouTube is something that's used by anyone and everyone. And actually, it's the second largest search engine on the internet, second only to Google. YouTube is a place where people are going to go when they need to look something up, like that they want to see a video about, you know. So it's interesting to think about just how much people are on YouTube and also how much that affects search results too, because you actually are kind of rewarded if there's things that are on YouTube when people are even doing a Google search result. So I'm going to tell you some on each of these about when it's best to post on these types of platforms based on data and research. Obviously, some of this is going to be a little different just over the next few weeks, but this is something that you can take back and use, you know, for a while to come. But basically, you want to post early afternoons on YouTube, especially on Thursdays and Fridays, because then what ends up happening is YouTube indexes the videos, and so they're not necessarily available right away, but you'll be indexed by the evening, which is when a lot of people are looking on there, or by the weekends, which again is when a lot of people are on there. What I want you to think about with YouTube is the content stays there indefinitely. So what's interesting to me about YouTube is it can almost be used as a secondary website for the practice. You don't necessarily, because the thing about YouTube is, like, I'm not thinking that your practice is going to come up in search results per se, you know, like somebody's going to look up getting braces and your practice is going to come up. No. But it can come up in Google search results if they're looking for an orthodontist in the area. The YouTube videos can help you. And if you create a YouTube page for your practice, like I said, you can put a few videos on there that serve as like a secondary website. Number one, you're able to put videos on there that you can make yourself. So in terms of getting video content places, it's going to be easier than, you know, kind of trying to change that stuff on your website frequently. And you can take it down, you know, or put new things up a lot easier than your website. So it's a really interesting place to really supplement for video material that, like I said, is going to stay there indefinitely. So people will always be able to see it as long as you have it up there. And it really doesn't have to be as trendy or as catchy as, some of the other social media platforms, because again, what I'm assuming here is it's like a patient's going to search for your practice if they're coming in as a new patient, or a family that's looking for an orthodontist. So you're not trying to get through the YouTube algorithms. You just want to have a landing page with some videos on there about your practice so that it's educational and people can learn about you, the staff, the practice, etc. What are some of the best things that work well on YouTube? Lists work really well on YouTube. People will post a video of the top 10 reasons, to see an orthodontist instead of a mail order aligners or something like that. How-to videos always work really well on YouTube. Things that are behind the scenes. So if you show things that are going on in the practice, funny things that people might not always get to see when they're in there. Product videos is something that works well. Case studies and interviews. So those are some things that, if you don't have a YouTube page currently for your practice, this offers you 6 types of videos. I would encourage you to get 4, if not 6 of these types up on your YouTube page. Get a YouTube page started. This gives you 4 or 6 videos that you can get started with, so that you kind of can think about, all right, well, what do we even want to put up there? Do interviews with your patients, show case studies of things with your patients. Like I said, it's funny, behind the scenes type of stuff. Work on those and try to get those up over this year if you don't have anything on there. And if you do have something on there already, just kind of think about if you need to supplement it with any of this type of material. Okay, in terms of Facebook, obviously we're all super familiar with Facebook. 75% of Americans are on it that are 18 or older, and it's a little skewed more towards women usage among women than men. The best times to post on Facebook are midweek between 11 and 1 p.m. It's lunchtime for everybody, so they need a little bit of a break. For healthcare specifically, what they found, which I think can apply in this instance, Wednesday mornings seem to, for some reason, kind of cut through the noise better than other times. And weekends have the lowest engagement. So, don't worry about the fact that you're not able to post on the weekends, or depending on a staff member that's taking care of this, it's not really necessary. When it comes to Facebook, there's a couple things to consider. You really shouldn't be posting more than 1 time per day, because what ends up happening is it just gets annoying, honestly, to people, and it becomes a little bit overwhelming. But you really, truthfully, should try to post 3 times a week. That might seem like a lot, but even if you're just posting something funny, something short and sweet, the reason being is because it's going to help you be able to be seen more frequently on Facebook, with the algorithms and stuff that they're using. Definitely vary the type of Facebook posts you're putting out there. I think we all have probably at least one of those Facebook friends who are posting constantly just an inspirational quote, and that's predominantly what they post. Or for a while, I remember I had a friend that was only posting those recipe videos that they would show kind of in fast motion. And what ends up happening on those is you kind of start to ignore them, or you don't notice those posts as much because you're so used to seeing so many of them. So as a practice, if I go to your Facebook page, I want to see you mix it up. I want to see photos for sure. I want to see some graphics, like I said, an inspirational quote or a cartoon. But I also want to see video. I also want you to do some live video occasionally. And then some of your posts, which is pretty rare nowadays, I feel like, some should be just text only. You can ask people a question, generate a discussion, or you can run polls, like I said, generate discussion and try to get as much involvement as possible. And truly be original. Obviously, you're having a lot of competition with other posts on Facebook, so you need to try to be as original as possible. Some good tips of posts that work well: you can ask for advice, you can run little contests, something that's going to facilitate a discussion, like a fill in the blank type of a thing, and really get personal. Highlight things about the staff members in the practice, highlight things about the orthodontist, so that they really get to know you on a personal level. Truly, that's really what Facebook is all about, is kind of a window into what's going on in somebody's life. And so don't be afraid to get personal on Facebook. Okay, Instagram. It's typically, the bulk of Instagram users are ages 18 to 29, and again, it's weighted a little bit more towards usage for women. Same type of time frame. Wednesdays and Fridays seem to be best, and again, it's that kind of pre-lunchtime, time frame. And Sundays have the least engagement for Instagram. Similar, like we discussed with Facebook. On Instagram for a practice, posting consistently is the key for exposure. So, you do want to keep some type of a consistent pattern with Instagram so that people will see your posts. Maintain a mix of both stories and posts. One of the things that I've noticed with people that I follow on Instagram is they'll post a lot of stories. Nowadays that seems to be like all of what I have. And then sometimes I'll go to that person's Instagram page just to look through it, and like they haven't had an actual plain old post in maybe like a couple months or at least a couple weeks. So just think about the fact that stories disappear, so if you do want stuff to stay up there, you either have to like keep it in your highlights on Instagram or just do some traditional posts so that people will see that too. And try to use a branded hashtag. People can find things and search for things better by using hashtags on something like Instagram. So come up with something and for your practice and post that on every Instagram post you do, just so that you quickly and easily have a compilation of those things. In terms, and please don't forget to respond to comments or to mentions that come up on Instagram. The thing about social media is it is a two-way street. So as a practice, I don't want you necessarily getting in like an argument over a bad review. I don't necessarily want you to get into like a full-on discussion with people. But if people are responding, respond back in a professional manner or give them something. It's going to help your post be seen more, and it's also going to just show that you're actively using it and you're not just putting stuff out there and then, walking away. Things that work well on Instagram, especially if you want to run like contests, are some of these examples: like or comment to win, photo caption, tag a friend, trivia. So that's what works on Instagram. Now, I want to talk about, again, kind of the meat of this area. I want to look at a few others that you might not be on as a practice. And I really am, it might sound overwhelming, encouraging you to be on all 6 platforms. I don't think you can keep up with all 6 all the time per se, but I think it's important to have a presence on all of them because they reach different age groups, they reach different gender groups, and they have different goals or different mediums in terms of text versus photos, etc. So I want you to think about having a presence on all of them and trying to keep tabs on them, as much as possible. But you don't have to be, like an overactive user by any means. So Snapchat is obviously becoming more prevalent. It's definitely geared towards the younger age group. So especially when we're thinking about reaching out to patients instead of just parents, they're not on Facebook anymore, our patients. They're more going to be on things like Snapchat, TikTok, etc. Really every day of the week goes for Snapchat. Later in the evening is probably best because that's when the kids are usually on it. A story on Snapchat is up for 24 hours, then disappears. So just kind of keep that in mind. Keep it authentic and use the fun features on Snapchat. That's what it's for. Use the stickers, use the doodles, and promote your Snapchat account everywhere. People might not realize that you have one. So you need to go ahead and post it on your website, post it on your email signatures, show the fact that you are present on there. You can send direct snaps in some instances. Like I think it's a fun way to notify contest winners if they're following you on Snapchat. Or you can congratulate patients on getting their braces on or off by doing something on Snapchat because, again, they're more likely to be on there than another social media platform. So Snapchat is very personal. It's almost kind of like a form of like a video conference in a way, I guess. So just think about that. Obviously keep it professional, but it's a really good place to be to connect with your patients and kind of show them that, your practice is hip. Twitter is, something I think a few years ago we may have thought Twitter was going to, fall by the wayside, but now it's more popular than ever. For numerous reasons. It's definitely most popular with millennials, ages 18 to 24 years old. It tends to have a more affluent, educated crowd, and actually slightly more men than women. So as compared to Facebook or Instagram, Twitter is a little different. You want to post, again, lunchtime, is a great time for Twitter as well. Focus on things like education, enrichment, engagement. Remember that Twitter is supposed to be short snippets of communication, even though you have the opportunity to post multiple tweets. You want to keep it short. And use hashtags, but don't go hashtag crazy. You don't want to really use more than 3. Okay, TikTok. I know this sounds maybe you're like, why would I go on TikTok? Why would I be on TikTok? Maybe some of you are on TikTok. But it's very much the younger generation. And it's fun. We don't really know exactly when the best times are, but you can probably follow like the same types of things as Snapchat. It's going to be younger users. It's all about short videos. So it should be raw, unedited, authentic. You can create your own TikTok channel. A lot of companies are utilizing influencers on TikTok. There's hashtag challenges that is a really good way, like, the old what was it called? The ice bucket challenge that was like so popular on Facebook a while back. Now those types of challenges are happening not necessarily for fundraising, but just to be funny, and a bunch of them are happening on TikTok. So it's a good way for your practice to get involved without being overwhelmed by what goes on TikTok, but you can do things like these hashtag challenges. You can, post some fun like little dance videos, but definitely be creative and be funny. So just to recap, YouTube is videos only. Keep it informational, educational, funny. Facebook is relationship-based. Photos, videos, and commentary is important. On Instagram, you want to be personal, original, and artistic. A lot of real-life photos do well on Instagram. Snapchat's different. It's more intimate, silly, fun, fantastical. On Twitter, you're putting out short thoughts, links, topic-based things. It's like a news ticker for some people. So think about that in your tweets. And then TikTok is short videos, music-based, again, authentic, raw, unedited. So that's kind of my plea for you to get on all 6. I know, like I said, it sounds overwhelming, but it's doable. It's definitely doable. When you're doing things on social media, you should keep a percentage mix in mind so you're not solely focusing on selling. I'll give you an example that comes from Shaquille O'Neal, who had a formula with a social media coach. He gets a lot of endorsements on social media. So he dealt with a social media coach, and they came up with this percentage so that people would follow his, feeds and respond to his feeds, and then he can sneak in that 10% of selling, as you see on this pie chart, so that he can get those endorsements. But if he spent, 30, 40% of his time selling, people might kind of tune him out after a while. So this was the percentage that they came up with that he needs to stick to maintain those followers, and then to really maintain that credibility in terms of being, doing his endorsements that he can make a lot of money off of. Think about that for your practice. It really should be kind of the same thing. And when you're posting things like before and after photos, or pictures of patients getting their braces off and, holding balloons or something, that's selling technically, So even though it might kind of seem like, oh, well, it's inspiring. Yeah, maybe, but a lot of that is really, kind of selling. We're showing what we did in the practice. So just think about mixing in more things so that your page doesn't just become something about you promoting yourself or your patients. Create some type of a social media calendar. Tip number 3 kind of goes along with that. There are services that are not in the orthodontic industry that you can use, things like Hootsuite, Amplifier. There's a lot of them out there that will help you with scheduling those posts and managing your posts across multiple channels. So reach out to those things so that you can keep up with all of this. It's a good way to kind of see a roadmap so you're not thinking like, what do I need to post today? The other thing I want you to think about is dividing and conquering across your staff. So, to me, it's no longer that just like one person on the staff should be doing all the social media. To me, it should be a team effort. And if I was, in another corporation, we would have the luxury of having a social media team. So you don't necessarily have that luxury, but what you can do is, make it a part-time or a couple hours a week job for multiple staff members who have strengths in different areas. Somebody might be really good at like copywriting and writing captions and things like that for your social media posts. A different person might be really good at graphic design or at taking photos and videos. And then even a different person might be great at looking at the analytics of it all and how you guys are performing on social media. That might even be somebody that you might not think would be involved, like a financial coordinator, or somebody who does something in the business office might really like looking at the analytics. So you can try to put together a little team within your staff that work on it, very part-time, but you can help create accountability. They can kind of cover for each other if somebody's out or away, and they can all play to their strengths to have, a social media presence for your practice. So think about that. I'm taking a look at the time. I know we're going to be done close to about 5 minutes from now, so I don't want to zoom through too much, but I do want to get the information out to you. I have another quick clip from Modern Family for this section about scheduling a showing, just to talk a little bit about, really briefly, on the sales process.
And this is a great room, although great hardly seems to do a room like this justice. Weird, squiggly painting not included.
I actually love it.
I do too. It's really beautiful. All custom built-ins, and you'll notice just tons of natural light, so that's great. Did I need the sale? Yes. Was I worried? No. Why? Because. Because why? Because I won't sell anything I don't believe in. And when I believe, you believe. I can sell a fur coat to an Eskimo.
So for any of you who didn't get that, it's kind of a thinker. I can sell a fur coat to an Eskimo. Sometimes I get a good response right away, and then sometimes it takes people a little while. Even myself, I think it took me a minute to get that. But think about believing in the practice, thinking about what you believe in. And as a team, you really need to determine the key features that you'd like to point out when patients are coming into the practice, or, when you're doing the sales portion of the job, which is going to be typically like a new patient exam. What types of things did you do in your marketing or your social media that you kind of need to repeat when they come in? And do enroll the entire staff in the process. One of the things that I want to encourage you to do, too, is provide tangible clues of the value of your product. Now, what I mean by that is a lot of practices nowadays, everything's paperless. And so there are definitely some practices out there that have done away with something like a walkout packet, for example. To me, if I'm going to spend $5,000 to $7,000 on a product, I would like to have something tangible in my hands that's kind of showing me the value of that practice, and that they are, concerned about putting forward a good face for their brand. So if you don't have a walkout packet, I would encourage you to get one for sure. Implement that, even though it feels like, everything's paperless. I had a doctor once when I was giving this presentation ask, well, what about a jump drive? Okay, a jump drive definitely shows that you're technologically advanced if you're giving that to them to take home. But the thing about it is people still do put things up on their refrigerator or leave something out on the counter for their spouse to read or to remind them to do. And so if you're not providing something with that jump drive, like a letter or even maybe like, something in a folder, I would encourage you to do that. And things should be printed on nice paper. Things should be printed well, thick folders, all that kind of stuff. Because again, you're thinking somebody's about to spend $5,000 to $7,000. What are we giving them as tangible clues to take home to show their family the type of experience they had in our practice? Since, not everybody can come to the new patient exam. When you're going through the sales process, don't be afraid to acknowledge the corporate options that are out there and help your patients compare apples to apples. One example I like to give is like Smile Direct Club. They offer a money-back guarantee. Well, so does a private practice, technically. If somebody's unhappy with how treatment's going, they're welcome to discontinue treatment. Their fee will be prorated accordingly. They will sign some type of, medical release form, and no further money will be collected from them. Or if they're owed a refund at that point, refund will be provided. So don't be afraid to acknowledge the other options that are out there. But like I said, help somebody create like a pros and cons list or compare apples to apples, and just be really blunt and direct about it, because often we have a lot of the same benefits, and then we also don't have some of the same downfalls. So it's important to really highlight that for the people that are coming into your practice. Okay, so our last little section here is time for a walkthrough. So I want you to go back to the practice and I want you to think about, truthfully, all of these items are things that you really need to take an inventory of and see, how are we doing in terms of highlighting the fact that we're a local business, we are family focused. There are definitely still ways to highlight how technologically advanced you are, and there's still benefits to that. But look at things like your logo or your color scheme. Do things need to be updated? If you've changed your logo recently, does everything match across the board? I'll have some practices that'll change their logo and then they'll keep using like old stationery for a while. And it's like, oh, well, we just have all this stationery, want to get rid of it. It's like, no, you spent the time and money to redo your logo. Like, let's have a good, cohesive brand image. So just think about that, even with things like your office interior. From an administrative perspective, even things like your new patient forms or your health history forms. These are some examples that I've seen on websites recently. None of them are fillable. Okay, none of them are PDF fillable. And these are practices that really do kind of pride themselves on being technologically advanced. This one here in the middle really gets me because it's such an old form and very old-fashioned looking, and I just don't think it shows that we care about the forms, representing our brand, and they're definitely not easy for the patients to fill out. When somebody's having to fill something out and remember to bring it in with them, we've missed the boat. So make that process easy for your patients. If you don't already have online fillable forms, get them, figure that out, make sure they're HIPAA compliant, and make sure that they're representative of your brand. On your website, hopefully this isn't something we really have to discuss, but these are two snapshots of websites that I took on a phone just a couple months ago. The one on the left, as you can see, it looks okay, but it's not optimized for a mobile phone. The one on the right is. And the one on the left, is a great practice. They do a great job with things, but just nobody's really paid attention to the fact that their website isn't truly mobile friendly. You can see the fonts are a lot smaller, just things are not optimized for the phone as compared to the one on the right. So take a look at your website on a mobile device. Even if it is mobile friendly, take a look at it, probably once a quarter, because sometimes when websites that have certain updates that need to be done to them, to like the design end, things can kind of break, alignments can look weird, pictures might be missing, so make it a habit to look at your website once a quarter, not just on a computer, but also on a mobile device, so you know what your patients are seeing. Take a look at things like SEO. That's kind of like a topic in and of itself, but I just want to mention that here. You kind of need to see where things are going. And unfortunately, one of the themes I've seen kind of recently is there's practices that are paying for SEO services, and at times those aren't quite being done. Sometimes those providers, those SEO services, don't even necessarily have access to the back end of the website, which means they can't even really make changes to it. So that means they're not really optimizing things. So just be cautious of that, kind of know what you're paying for. Let's see. I just wanted to show you guys. This was an example of a YouTube page where an orthodontist had some funny things up on here and also some informative things. So just an idea for you, to take back. There's a funny music video that the doctor posted. This was a really great idea that I saw where a practice was doing a Nike design contest. So, you can go on Nike, you can create customized shoes for you. So what they did was they said to the patients, we want you guys to submit these designs. We want you to send them in via email, and our staff is going to vote on the winning designs. And the winners are going to actually receive the shoes that they designed. So what I thought was really cool about this is it's just a much different way to, provide a prize. So think about, you could do this exact thing. You might think of another idea that's similar. But what's cool about it then, too, is, they're reminding people about it on their social media. And then when the kids come in that were winners, they're wearing the shoes. So this was a picture of the patient in for their appointment. This was another one of the winners, a picture of her opening the shoes. So it really got them a lot of bang for their buck, so to speak. They were able to put up these pictures. It's a cool idea. I'm sure the kids are going to talk about them when they're at school. And it truthfully, wasn't going to cost them very much money. I think those are probably no more than $200 per pair, and they picked 4 winners. So those are the types of things that you need to be thinking about. What's going to exponentially maximize our exposure? You know, it's a lot different than just giving these kids a Nike gift card would not have had the same effect. You know, giving them the shoes, capturing these moments, that's what we're talking about with creating an experience. Even though this was a product, it created an experience. So that's actually it for today. I'm sorry if I flew through stuff. I knew I had a lot of information to get out in a little bit short time period, but I appreciate you guys hanging with me. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to use the chat feature, or if you do have any questions that come up, you know, feel free to pop on my website. You can get my email address on there. It's just Kayla, actually, at informedimage.com, and I'm happy to answer anything. So that's my time.
Great. Thank you so much, Kayla. If anyone has any questions, you can ask in the chat box. We'll just wait here for a few seconds, and then if no one has anything.
Well, like I said, feel free to reach out anytime. I know there's a lot going on right now, but you might have some downtime. So I'm happy to answer questions over the next couple weeks.